All right. Thank you all for joining us today. We're going to go ahead and get started. And somebody just mentioned in the chat box that there's a Q&A box and also a chat box. We'll just ask that you use the chat box to type in your questions. But first, welcome to the Veterinary Services Grant Program webinar for interested applicants. My name is Danielle Farley. Before we get started, I ask that everyone stays muted throughout this webinar. And again, we ask that you type all questions in the chat box as you have them. We will have about 15 minutes at the end of our presentation to answer your questions. And this webinar is being recorded. We will post this recorded webinar to the VSGP webpage along with the answers to the questions you asked today, and we'll have that posted within 2 weeks of today. And thank you again for joining us. We will now begin with introductions.
Hey, good morning or good afternoon, everybody. My name is Bob Smith. I serve as the National Program Leader for the Animal Health program at NIFA with oversight of this program along with Dr. Bjork, and also the Veterinary Loan Repayment Program for USDA, and also USDA's Small Business Innovative Research Program on animal production and protection. With that, I'll turn it over to Kathy.
Thanks, Bob. As Danielle and Bob said, thank you for joining us today and for your interest in the VSGP. I'm Kathy Bjork. I joined NIFA in late 2020 as a National Program Leader for Animal Health. The VSGP is one of the programs in my portfolio. As with Bob, I also am a co-lead for the VMLRP. And I'm looking forward to working with you all. So just to keep things moving, I'll turn it back over to Danielle and we'll get started with the slides.
Hi, everyone. Yep, my name is Danielle Farley, and I am the program specialist for the Veterinarian Services Grant Program, as well as the Veterinarian Medicine Loan Repayment Program. And we're happy to have you here. So let's get into the content of this webinar. So this webinar is designed to give you an in-depth explanation of the VSGP application process. Today we will cover the following items: a general overview of VSGP, a detailed description of the Rural Practice Enhancement grants, and the Education Extension and Training grants, the application process, the review process, and what happens after awards are announced. We expect this presentation to be about 45 minutes long. For those of you just joining us, please stay muted for the duration of the webinar, and we will ask that you type all of your questions in the chat box, and we will take about 15 minutes at the end of this webinar to answer each question. So feel free to type them in as they're coming along. Okay, so the VSGP is authorized by the 2014 Farm Bill to make competitive grants available to qualified entities or individuals that carry out educational programs or services for the purpose of developing, implementing, and sustaining food animal veterinarian services and relieving veterinarian shortage situations in the United States. For 2021, there is approximately $2.88 million available for awards in 2 program areas: Education Extension and Training, as we refer to as EET, and Rural Practice Enhancement, as we refer to as RPE. Applications for both program areas are due by April 16th at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
The Rural Practice Enhancement, or RPE grants, are for establishing or expanding veterinary practices by equipping veterinary offices, sharing in overhead costs, and/or establishing mobile veterinary facilities in which a portion of the facilities will address education or extension needs. Approximately 1/3 of available funds for VSGP is allocated for RPE projects, with award amounts ranging between a minimum of $75,000 and a maximum of $125,000. In fiscal year 2020, NIFA funded 10 RPE awards, each at $125,000. Eligible applicants include individuals or entities, both nonprofit or for-profit, located in the U.S. that operate a veterinary clinic which provides food animal services in a rural area, which is designated on the VMLRP Veterinarian Shortage Situation Map. In other words, RPE applicants apply to a specific shortage situation area that they will provide services in. The applicant does not need to be the veterinarian providing service. Applicants for this grant can be from employees of the veterinary clinic providing services. Funds awarded under this program area are for equipping veterinary offices, sharing in reasonable overhead expenses, and/or to establish mobile veterinary facilities. Note that any one of these categories or a combination of the three can be applied for. The only exception is overhead costs, which cannot exceed 50% of the requested funds. When requesting funds to equip veterinary offices, the applicant must explain how the requested equipment will be used to provide veterinary care for agricultural animals in rural veterinarian shortage situations. When requesting funds for overhead, the applicant must explain how the overhead funds requested will allow the applicant to extend or establish veterinary services in a designated shortage situation. Overhead includes expenses such as salary and fringe benefits for veterinarians and support personnel, office rent, vehicle fuel supporting ambulatory services, maintenance contracts on equipment used to treat food animals, expendable medical and office supplies, computer software or hardware, and utility expenses. When requesting funds to establish a mobile practice, applicants must not only explain how the mobile facilities will enable them to establish services in a designated shortage situation, but also how they plan to use the facilities to address education or extension needs in the shortage situation area. This can be through experiential learning opportunities for veterinary or veterinary technician students, interns, externs, or high school students in grades 11 and 12, courses, seminars, lectures, or other events for producer groups, the public, community organizations, or academic institutions, or participation in emergency preparedness events. Mobile facility requests include items such as a vehicle equipped to provide mobile veterinary services. For example, a truck with a vet box, a trailer squeeze chute, or other animal restraint devices. It is important to note that all RPE awards will require 3 years of veterinary service in the designated veterinarian shortage situation that one applies for. So what is a designated shortage situation?
Veterinary shortage situations are designated under the Veterinary Medical Loan Repayment Program. These can be found via a link to the VMLRP map on the VSGP webpage located at the bottom of this slide. The process of shortage situations designation occurred over the last several months following a well-defined, non-competitive, merit-based process aimed at fairly distributing opportunity to participate in the RPE grant for VSGP and the VMLRP. Nominations were submitted by the state animal health officials from across the country and insular areas, and the panel recommended all of them to be designated as shortage situations. Those interested in applying for the RPE grants will use this map to identify the shortage situation area they intend to fill and define the details of the veterinary needs of these areas. Those applying for EET grants may want to review the shortage situations in their state to better understand the specific needs of food animal medicine in their area. To access this map, go to the application site of the VMLRP website. You will see a link for the map of designated locations for 2020 under choosing your veterinary shortage situation header. This link takes you to a page with a 2021 map and a table below as indicated on the slide. All states or blocks shaded blue have designated shortage areas for 2021. States or blocks in white do not have a designated veterinary shortage situation. This does not necessarily mean that there does not exist a shortage situation within the state, but that either one means no shortage situation nominations were submitted by the state, or two, the external review panel did not recommend any of the submitted nominations for official designation. Please note that the map appears very small when using Internet Explorer, but is easily viewed by other browsers such as Chrome. You can access the shortage situations for a state in one of two ways, either by clicking on the blue shaded area of the map or by using the filter located below the map, entering the state to filter by and selecting apply. No matter which technique you use, the map will not change, but the table below will list the shortage areas that match your search criteria. When you click on a state, a list of shortage IDs will be displayed in a table below the map. The image is an example of what is displayed after clicking on the state of Illinois, for example. Moving from left to right, you will see the shortage ID, state, territory, county, shortage type, VMLRP status, VSGP status, fiscal year, and lastly, the nomination form. This table offers easy viewing for quick information. The type of shortage areas is important to note for the RPE applicants. All type 2 areas are in rural areas and are eligible shortages under the VSGP. Type 1 areas may or may not be in a rural area. As such, added steps will be needed to determine if the area is eligible. We will review these steps shortly. Type 3 areas are public practices and do not fall under the eligible applicant category for VSGP. Next, I would like to direct your attention to the right side of the table. Here, you will see a link to a PDF under nomination form.
When you click on the PDF file, you will see a copy of the nomination form that was submitted to NIFA by the state animal health official. This is an image of what the PDF will look like when you open it. You can use this form to gain a better understanding of the specified shortage situation you plan to apply for. The second page of the nomination form contains answers to 4 questions. The first question addresses the importance and objectives of a veterinarian filling this shortage. The next question addresses the activities and services the veterinarian should provide. The third question addresses past recruitment issues. And the last question addresses the risk to public health and/or the food supply if the shortage is not filled. The first page of the nomination form contains the minimum number of working hours, which we refer to as % full-time equivalent, or FTE. This portion of the nomination form does not apply to VSGP applicants. All VSGP applicants must dedicate 60% of their services to food animals. As we mentioned earlier, all type 2 veterinarian shortage situations are in rural areas. However, type 1 shortages are not necessarily in rural areas. Although many probably are, If you are considering an eligible type 1 shortage situation area, the location must meet the definition of rural, which is defined in section 343A of the Consolidated Farm and Rural Development Act. The good news is this same definition applies to some of the rural development business programs. To check if a type 1 shortage situation is in a rural area, visit the USDA Rural Development Business Programs Rural Community Development Initiative map, otherwise known as RCDI. The link to this map is provided at the bottom of this slide. Type in your address to see if it qualifies as a rural area. More than one application can be submitted by any applicant for different shortage situation areas, but only one award will be given per veterinarian shortage area and only one award per applicant. As a reminder, all recipients of VSGP awards must provide 3 years of service to the shortage situation applied for. Moving on, we will now review the second program area of today's webinar, the Education, Extension, and Training, otherwise known as EET grants.
So approximately 2/3 of the available funds, or $1.6 million, will be allocated in fiscal year 2021 for EET projects. Award amounts range from $75,000 to $250,000. This funding amount includes up to 30% for indirect costs. In fiscal year 2020, NIFA awarded 7 EET projects with an average amount of $240,000. Eligible applicants for the EET program area include, first, a state, national, allied, or regional veterinary organization or specialty board recognized by the American Veterinary Medical Association, or a state agricultural experiment station. Further eligible applicants include a college or school of veterinary medicine accredited by the American Veterinary Medical Association, a university research foundation or veterinary medical foundation, a Department of Veterinary Science or Department of Comparative Medicine accredited by the Department of Education, or a state, local, or tribal government agency. Please note that applications proposing coordination with other qualified entities will receive funding preference.
Funds awarded under this program area will support activities and programs to relieve veterinary shortage situations for any of the following 4 purposes. First, to cover the expenses for attending training programs in food safety and food animal medicine. Expenses can be covered by veterinary students, interns, externs, fellows, residents, and veterinary technical students. Second, to establish or expand accredited veterinary education programs to include faculty recruitment and retention, veterinary residencies and fellowship programs, or veterinary internships and externship programs carried out in coordination with accredited colleges of veterinary medicine. Third, to provide continuing education and extension needed to strengthen veterinary programs and enhance food safety. These include veterinary telemedicine and other distance-based education, and must be for veterinarians, veterinary technicians, and/or other health professionals. And lastly, to expose students in grade 11 and 12 to education and career opportunities in veterinary medicine with a focus on food animal medicine. Examples of the types of activities that would be appropriate for this program area include the development and implementation of traditional or non-traditional learning opportunities, non-degree educational training programs, courses or course series associated with existing degree programs, and continuing education. Keep in mind that these types of activities can include opportunities for high school students. Please note, applications proposing to develop new degree programs or new curriculums will not be funded.
Funding priority will be placed on programs that are designed for veterinarian students in their last 2 years of their veterinary degree program. Veterinary interns, externs, fellows, and residents, veterinary technicians and students, early career veterinarians. These are veterinarians who, at the time they begin participation in the activities proposed in the application, are within 5 years of graduation from a DVM or DVM equivalent degree program. The content being taught should emphasize one or more of the following: veterinary practice enhancement techniques and strategies that benefit the health of agricultural animals, best practices for delivering quality veterinary services in rural areas, and/or veterinary approaches to foster food safety, epidemiology, or veterinary public health. It is not required for EET applicants to specify specific veterinary shortage situation areas or the needs. However, the shortage situation map discussed earlier in this webinar provides details and detailed information regarding the rural needs of food animal veterinary services and can be a helpful tool to strengthen EET applications. This slide provides an overview of the application process for both RPE and EET grants. Applicants are encouraged to obtain the Data Universal Number System, or what we like to call DUNS number, and register with System Award Management, or SAM, as soon as possible. Even if you haven't decided if you will apply yet, it's important to do this process soon. This process can take a few weeks and could delay your ability to submit your application by the deadline. Ensure when registering for a SAM account that you register as an entity doing business with the federal government. This process should ask for more information and will take longer than just getting a login. Once you have a DUNS number and a SAM account registration with grants.gov and enter the funding opportunity number for VSGP, you can download the application package. It is important that you have the version of Adobe Reader compatible with grants.gov and that all attached documents that you submit with your application are in PDF format. After reviewing your application package for completeness, submit to NIFA no later than the deadline on April 16th at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We encourage you to start the application process early to ensure any problems with technology do not impact your submission.
We will not cover the details of working with grants.gov in today's webinar. NIFA provides an array of resources for understanding how to navigate grants.gov. We encourage all interested applicants to review the steps needed to apply for any NIFA grant and the NIFA training module that provides new applicants a guide for using grants.gov. These links can be easily accessed by going to the VSGP applicants webpage seen at the bottom of this slide. One of the most important documents of your application is the project narrative. For RPE grants, the narrative is limited to 6 pages and allows for 2 additional pages for figures and tables. This table provides guidance for the sections that should be addressed in the narrative and the approximate number of pages of written text to dedicate to each section. The third column annotates where reviewers will be looking for review criteria within your narrative. This table is in the RFA, and we encourage you to reference the RFA to see what should be included in each section. For EET grants, the narrative is limited to 12 pages and allows for 3 additional pages for figures and tables. Again, this table provides guidance for the sections that should be addressed in the narrative and the approximate number of pages of written text to dedicate to each section. The third column annotates where reviewers will be looking for review criteria within your narrative. This table is in the RFA, and we encourage you to reference the RFA to see what should be included in each section.
The budget is an itemized list that details how you plan to spend the award and should outline all of the costs directly related to conducting the project. Ensure that any overhead costs in the budget does not exceed 50% of the total amount of requested funds. Indirect costs are not allowed since overhead is a direct cost for the RPE grant. Additionally, funds cannot be used for new construction, acquisition, expansion, remodeling, or altering of existing buildings or facilities, which include site grading and improvement and architect fees. So don't put them in your budget. The budget narrative should explain exactly how these costs relate to the budget, to the project, sorry. This is where you provide detail regarding the items in the budget and justify their need as appropriate and necessary. This is particularly important for overhead because the narrative must clearly describe the purpose of proposed expenditures and how requested funds will enhance current practice operations, specifically in relationship to mitigation of the shortage situation. Moving forward, we want to clarify important application details for RPE applicants. First, the project title must include the shortage situation area you are proposing to serve. The example here shows the shortage ID Illinois 211 or IL 211, followed by the name of the veterinary clinic. Second, all RPE applicants must provide a legible map with the clinic location and the square miles of the shortage situation area. And I emphasize legible.
Similarly, the EET budget is an itemized list that details how you plan to spend the award and should outline all of the costs directly related to conducting the project. The budget narrative should explain exactly how these costs relate to the project you propose. Indirect costs are those items indirectly related to conducting the project. No more than 30% of the requested funds can be for indirect costs. The actual indirect cost percent used is the rate negotiated between your institution or organization and the federal government. Again, not to exceed 30% of funds requested. For those without a negotiated rate, the maximum standard rate of 10% can be used. Here we offer guidance on how to avoid common errors for both RPE and EET applications. First, all attachments in your application must be in PDF format. It is important that you disable any security features with your PDF, such as password protection and editing restrictions. File names should be 50 characters or less and should not have special characters in them. Use meaningful file names like the example we provided for project title for RPE grants that include the shortage ID and project title, or shortage ID and project narrative. Do not include headers or footers in any of your documents. We encourage you to use section headings as part of the text. Consider the subsections of the project narrative that we reviewed earlier. These could be subheadings within your document. Lastly, please follow the guideline for fonts, margins, and page limits as detailed in the RFA. Once you submit your application with grants.gov, you will receive an email confirmation that it was received. You will also receive various emails from grants.gov that will say if your application passed validation checks and is being sent on to the agency, or if your application did not pass the validation check and was rejected for review. If you plan on submitting early, the rejection issues can be addressed and applications can be resubmitted before the April 16th deadline. Again, we want to remind you that all applications must be submitted by the deadline of April 16th, 2021 at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This process takes time, which is why we encourage you to submit early. Errors in applications cannot be corrected after the due date. However, we can help you and assist you in correcting those errors before the due date.
After NIFA receives all applications by April 16th, a three-part evaluation process begins, which includes 1, ensuring the application is from an eligible applicant and that project budgets are within the specified range for RPE and EET program areas. And 2, all required documents are attached. If 1 and 2 are satisfied, the application is sent for peer review. NIFA anticipates that all awards will be announced by no later than September 30th, 2021. The first step in the review process is an initial screening conducted by NIFA staff to ensure compliance and completeness of the grant application. Ineligible applicants, incomplete applications, and late applications will not be considered for peer review. Additionally, budgets proposed outside the $75,000 and $250,000 range for EET projects will not be reviewed, and budgets proposed outside the $75,000 to $125,000 range for RPE projects will not be reviewed. After the initial screening, applicants will receive a letter of confirmation or rejection as described earlier in this webinar. Next, applications that pass the initial screening will move to the peer review process. Here, applications will be evaluated for content based on the review criteria listed in the RFA by an external peer review panel composed of veterinary subject matter experts. RPE applications have 2 key review criteria. First, experience and expertise will be weighted for 30% of the peer review process. Importance will be given to applications that demonstrate knowledge, skills, abilities, and experience of key personnel relative to the shortage area needs. Second, technical merit will be weighted for 70% of the peer review process. This includes clarity of objectives, activities, and outcomes, clarity of current practice operations, value of proposed equipment, overhead, and/or mobile practice facilities in the budget, content and delivery approaches for education or extension activities if funds are to be used to purchase or expand mobile facilities, including time commitment, size, and demographics of intended audiences. Conceptual adequacy of the proposed activities to meet the needs of the veterinarian shortage situation. For instance, how will services be established or expanded, market client recruitment or development strategies. Likelihood to achieve proposed outcomes, including realistic benchmarks for assessing project progress and assessing outcomes for their clients and community. Lastly, this includes an assessment of the reasonableness of the budget for proposed resources. Details of the review criteria for RPE applications can be found in the RFA. Bob's muted. There we go.
EET applications have 4 elements for their peer review criteria. First, relevancy and innovation will be weighed for 20% of the peer review process. The panel of peer reviewers will look for explanations and documentation that the proposed project is directed towards relieving veterinary shortage situations and is innovative or novel in its approach. Technical merit will be weighed for 50% of the peer review process. Details for technical merit are clearly outlined in the RFA. Achievability will be weighted at 20%. This involves the probability of success of the project given the level of originality, targeted audience, and budget for each activity. Importance will be given to description of the potential pitfalls and how they will be addressed. Lastly, weighted at 10%, EET grants will be reviewed for expertise, experience, and institutional resources. This includes the expertise of the consultants and collaborators, sufficiency of the educational facilities and equipment for the proposed education and outreach methods. Importance will be given to the demonstration of expertise through successful multi-year experience in education, outreach, and mentoring, and/or technical assistance in veterinary medical supporting agriculture. Again, details for each of these 4 criteria are provided in the RFA. In general, there are a few points for writing an application that will make a good impression on reviewers. Know your audience, who and where are the people you propose to train, and what do they need? How will you engage, educate, and train them? How will you serve a specific shortage situation area? Propose a solid work plan that is ambitious but achievable. Lastly, focus on results and how they will be measured. Think about what should be expected as a result of your training and what metrics you will be using to evaluate your results. Once the panel makes recommendations as to which application should be funded, awardees will be notified by telephone, and then the award packets will be passed on to NIFA's Awards Management Division for an administrative review and final processing. That division will determine when the grant will be awarded and when the funds will be issued, which will most likely be in mid-September before the end of the fiscal year of 30 September. Awardees will be allowed the opportunity to incur reimbursable costs 90 calendar days before NIFA makes the award. Therefore, if an award is not granted until the middle of September, the awardee could purchase equipment as early as mid-June. The awardee would be responsible for paying for the items and then reimbursement themselves from the grant after they receive the funds from the Department of Treasury in October. Be aware that should the awardee not be awarded the grant as a result of something that was discovered during the administrative review process, making them ineligible for the grant, they would be responsible for the full payment of anything they purchased in advance of the award, and NIFA would have no responsibilities or liabilities.
If you are awarded a VSGP grant, you will be asked to complete various reports during your committed service time. We try to make these reports as easy as possible to complete and will work with you throughout the process. We will not provide too much detail on these reports today. However, if you are awarded a grant, you can expect to complete an annual performance report, a final performance report, financial reports, and success stories from what your project accomplished. If you are awarded a grant, you will receive specifics about each of these reports and the requirements that we're asking of you. We wanted to direct you to an excellent resource for seeing what previously funded VSGP projects have focused on. The USDA Current Research Information System, or as we call it, CRIS, provides access to the reports we mentioned in the previous slide. You could find these reports by following the link to the USDA CRIS system. When you get to the main page, click on Assisted Search. From there, type in VSGP and click on Display Results. From there, you will see a list of VSGP reports in the system. On the right side of the page, you can click on More, and a report for that specific title or project will pop up. There are examples of both RPE and EET projects in this system and are, again, great examples to look at when crafting your application. These are not examples of actual grant applications that were funded, but they do provide information that was included in their grant application. Lastly, we wanted to inform you all about another NIFA program that may be of interest to you or someone you know. The Veterinarian Medicine Loan Repayment Program, known as VMLRP, is authorized by the National Veterinary Medical Services Act and helps qualified veterinarians offset a significant portion of the debt incurred in pursuit of their veterinarian medicine degrees in return for service in certain high priority veterinary shortage situations. Awardees of VMLRP commit to at least 3 years of food animal veterinary services in a designated veterinary shortage area. In return, NIFA will repay up to $25,000 of student loan debt per year. In other words, NIFA will pay a maximum of $75,000 for a 3-year award. Since the inception of VMLRP in fiscal year 2010, we received over 1,000 applications and awarded over 300 veterinarians across the country. If you are interested in more information about VMLRP, please join us for an applicant webinar tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or visit the VMLRP webpage for more information. The link to the VMLRP webpage is provided at the bottom of this slide. We are now open for questions, and we will start with questions entered in the chat box and in the question and answer box. I'm seeing some questions. Please feel free to enter questions as they come in the chat box, and please remember to mute your phone or computer if you are not asking a question. And lastly, we wanted to mention that we will not take questions today about VMLRP. All right, I am going to go ahead and open up some of the questions. Give me just a second here. So one of the questions is, will we be sharing the slides as a handout? We will be posting the slides in this webinar to our website. If you're interested in receiving a copy via email, you can type your email into the chat box and I'll send that off to you. So does aquaculture qualify? Does aquaculture qualify as, you know, let's see, I'm going to allow you to unmute yourself. Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, okay. So aquaculture does qualify. If you're doing an EET grant and you want to focus on educating students and early practitioners, young practitioners on management and treatment for aquaculture, yes. And we previously funded a project like that from the University of Florida, and they did great work. And so, yeah, we do like that. You may even have a SAHO, a state animal health official, that may say this could be a must-serve species. I don't see too many of those. It's sometimes listed as a may-serve species, but yeah. So aquaculture could be in the realm of work that you need to do or areas that you need to train
in. Yeah. So can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. Thank you for your response on that. This is Dr. Geraldine Henry. The reason why I was asking about that is because we are interested in not only training early graduates and young veterinarians in aquaculture, but to try to meet some of the needs, because there is a shortage of aquaculture veterinarians in many states, but also with the testing part of that. So we are interested in also developing testing components like PCR, for example, for microbiological diseases and being able to do screening. So would that also qualify if we're doing the field work and getting the samples out in the field and then bringing them back to the lab? So we were wondering if that
Right.
would fall under this.
Yeah, Geraldine, so developing the tests themselves is really not a component of that. We have programs that might be able to support the development of testing for aquaculture. The aquaculture program in itself at NIFA might be able to do that. But really, keep in mind, the focus of this program is to provide training so that veterinarians are better, or whoever, veterinary technicians, veterinarians are better prepared when they go out there. And so this is not necessarily, they may not be doing the testing as much. You see, they'll be doing the sample collection, they'll be doing the sample submission, they'll be trying to recognize what the disease is so they can implement a treatment. So actually developing of a diagnostic test really would not fall into this.
Okay, so this would be more for the training of the veterinarians and even younger veterinary students with the aquaculture medicine delivery. Then.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Medicine and management delivery. Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. For the next two questions, I'm going to bring them together. So what is the longest duration of EET grants? And also we have a question about how many EET applications we expect to receive.
Those are excellent questions. Okay. And Kathy, you want me to hit this again?
Yes, please.
So as far as duration, typical 3 years. Okay. I have to go back. Sometimes I think it's 3 years, a 3-year program, but you can always do no cost extensions. No grant can be longer than 5 years. Always keep that in mind. So some of our grants are 2 years, some of our grants are 3 years. I think the EET is a 3-year program, 36-month program. I'm just trying to think back. Danielle, did you see it for 48 months at all? I don't think so. Did we?
No.
But so you can have a 3-year grant. If you're having trouble or challenges meeting all your objectives or whatever, you can get a no cost extension. That means we can't give you any more money, but we can certainly give you more time to achieve your objectives. Okay. And what was the other question? I'm so sorry.
The other one was how many EET applications we expect to receive, and
that's the question of the year. I mean,
yeah.
I'll be honest with you, we didn't have a whole lot last year. We only had a total of what, I forget, 30, 35 total combined EET and RPE. And understand that the panel, our one panel will review both applicants for RPE and EET programs. And they will usually hit one group at a time, then they'll turn over and then they'll start hitting the next group, whichever one goes first. It doesn't make a big difference. But yeah, I wish I knew that question. That'd be great. I'm really happy to see how many participants we have here today. And hopefully that'll stimulate more applicants. In my view, I don't see why every veterinary school in the country or every veterinary science department doesn't submit an application. So that, potentially I'd like to see, EET alone have 40 applications, but that usually is not quite the case. We may get 15 to 20, but that's just my guess.
All right, next question from Sarah Wanger. I did not understand one thing. The slide went by fast. You said there is preference when the applicant is working with other entities. Do you mean like a university working with a professional organization? The answer to that is yes, or a university working with another university, or a DVM school or program working with a veterinarian technician school. Bob, do you want to expand on?
No, I think you're right on. So the more collaboration you do, even if you're a university and you want to work with the State Department of Agriculture, okay, that would be something that we oftentimes see. But, you know, collaboration, sometimes we get multi-states that want to get involved with this, and they have faculty from each of their institutions, and they all want to get together and collaborate. It actually creates a stronger application. It doesn't mean that everybody that gets an award does that. It just means that they're able to accomplish a lot more because they have more people involved. And of course, it seems like they can get a little bit more mileage on the money that we can allow them.
Okay, next question from Jibba. On Chris, is there a specific text box to search in? Searching VSGP in full text terms in the classification codes does not bring up any results. When you're in the Chris system, you should be able to click on that full text box, and it might be caps sensitive. If you put all caps for VSGP and in the full text box and then click on display results, you should get a full list. And if you continue to have trouble with that, please send an email to vsgp@usda.gov and we'll assist you further. But that's the process that I've used and that I've shared with other folks. Next question, with the change in government leadership, do you anticipate continued support in the future?
Congress loves this program. They don't love it as much as VMLRP, but I keep trying to get their attention that these are two very closely related programs. One's a grant and one's a giveaway for, you know, support a student loan, but Congress loves them. And I have heard from many administrators that they think that regardless, even if a president might try to line it out, you know, in their proposals, which has been done a couple of times, the end result is Congress and the Senate like the program. They get a lot of positive feedback on it, and so I anticipate it's here for the fairly long term. And I know with the farm bill, I know that the VSGP is good for another couple of years. So, but I think both programs are really in safe waters.
Yes, and they directly align with the new administration's rural development plans. We have another question here from Nick Limmel. I am a VMLRP recipient for NE 206 in 2020. Do we apply for the granted NE 206 or does it have to be the 2021 shortage situation? Our contract started on January 1, 2021. Bob, I'll try to answer this. So each year there's new shortage situation areas, and the one that you're serving now, that may have overlap for 2021, but you've got to look at the 2021 shortage situation area map. And if the counties that you're serving currently, based on the contract that you signed for VMLRP, are on the 2021 map, then you will apply for that shortage area. And Nick, if you want to come off of mute and follow up on that, or Bob, if you'd like to follow up on anything in regards to how they should apply, we'd be happy to give you more information.
I think you answered it. Was it not clear, Nick? Do you want to pop in and say anything? Was that clear?
No, that was very clear. I just was curious if we, in our headings for our application, we put that Nebraska 206, or if we want to do any whatever that, I mean, the shortage situations are still the same from 2020 to 2021. I just wanted to clarify for the titles and our headings and everything. So I want to apply for the 2021, not the 2020.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Well,
yes.
I mean, 2020 and 2021. So you currently have a contract with the VMLRP, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And so now they've opened up that same area for 2021. Is that right?
Correct.
So I would just go for your original and go for 2020. Why would you want to go for why would you want to go to 2021? I mean, it doesn't make any difference, really. I tell you,
If they're the same, if they're the
The
same.
same.
I mean, they're the exact same, just the way from the presentations, it sounded as if I needed to apply for the 2021 shortage situation, but
No,
that's,
if you're a current awardee, you know, and you have
Uh-huh.
contract and you got that on the 2020, then I'd use that, because actually that tells me that you're a VMLRP recipient. Okay.
And you could mention
Okay.
that in your
When he
narrative
comes
as
in here and
well.
applies for something that's prior, in the 2 or 3 years prior to the current year, that tells me that you're a VMLRP recipient. And in your application, if that's not clear, you want to make sure that people know in your application that you're a VMLRP recipient, because I think that has it says a little bit about yourself and the fact that you've already been awarded funding to, you know, pay back your loan, but now you're looking for funds to help support you in carrying out those services.
all righty.
And-
Well, I will leave it at the, I'll leave it at the 2020 situation then, that 206.
Sounds good.
But for 2021, the situation is also NE 206, or is there a different number?
No, that's designated as a different number because the 20 of the 206 is the year. So 2021, don't mark my words, but 2021 should probably be 2216.
Okay.
I can look up to clarify that, but yes, I'm currently
Well-
contracted with 206.
Okay, we will clarify that with you too, because Bob, I think that even if the service area is the same, like if they're serving the same region, but it's a different shortage ID, you should probably provide the one that is for 2021. But Nick, if you don't mind, we'll follow up with you on
Yeah.
that. Okay.
Let us look into it, Nick. Okay.
Okay.
We'll
perfect.
send you an email. Thanks for asking
Excellent.
that. All right, we have another question. My daughter is a veterinary parasitologist with U of A working with small ruminants, and I would like to work with small ruminants with her. Can we get grants in EET and RPE? And that's from Bev. Bob, I may have you take a
Well,
stab at that, and I may.
I'm assuming her daughter is the one with the debt, okay? The loan repayment, that's not her, right? I'm assuming that, right? So her daughter would apply for the VMLRP, is that right? Is that what she's saying? Or she want to apply for the?
No, I think that what I see is perhaps the RP or the EET would be good. Oh, so Bev is a veterinarian and her daughter is a vet parasitologist and is in an institution at U of A. So she could apply for the EET, I think, for a program there. And then Bev, I suppose, could apply for RPE as a veterinarian. So I don't see the VMLRP in that.
Okay,
question.
okay. So I wouldn't see a problem with that. I mean, the
Me
fact,
neither. No.
I mean, she's going to be applying for EET, sounds like, or her daughter is a parasitologist, and we have had parasitology programs awarded with EET. She should talk to her university and see if there anybody else at that university or institution that is also submitting an application. Because something I'm asking we only give one award per institution. And I'm trying to get institutions not to submit too many awards from one institution, because it makes each one, the more that are submitted from a specific institution, it makes them almost weaker, because the panel looks at them as competing with each other, if you know what I mean. So you want to talk to your Office of Research grants at the institution level and see if it's okay for you to make application, because they may have other people and other departments that want to submit these applications. And so we'd like to restrict the applicants from a specific institution, maybe down to no more than two departments, okay? 2 different departments. But just one application from department.
Okay. She says yes, thanks. Okay, Brian Blanchard says thanks for clarifying the 90-day pre-spending rule, Dr. Smith. How about the RPE RFA clause about VMLRP contract versus non-VMLRP competition equality for a given underserved area when considering for an RPE for that area? From what I understand, so if there's a shortage situation area and we have, say, five applicants for an RPE award, and one of those applicants happens to be a VMLRP grantee serving in that area, they will receive priority to the other applicants just for that shortage situation area. Does that make sense? And feel free to come off of mute if you'd like further clarification. And Bob or Kathy, if you want to add to that, you may.
And the biggest reason, Danielle, we do that is so we're not putting somebody in from one program that's going to compete with somebody from another program, because we sort of got beat up about that a few years ago. And it hasn't occurred in the last 4 years that I've run this program, but I can see it would be something that would be of concern to people if 1 year we put in a VMLRP person, and then on top of that, we then put somebody in who got an award for the same area with a VSGP, and they're competing with each other. So, but if it's a current, like you said, Danielle, it's a current applicant, they have an award for the VMLRP, you're right, they're gonna be given a priority. We wouldn't put someone in there to compete with them. That just wouldn't make sense.
Right. Okay. Are there any further questions? We'll wait a few minutes. Again, if you'd like me to send you these slides, please enter your email in the chat box. Otherwise, this will be posted to the VSGP webpage within 2 weeks. Okay, we have another question. Okay, thank you, Dr. McKinney. I got your email. We'll follow up with you on your shortage situation area. All right. Okay. Well, if there's no other questions, again, feel free to email questions to us at vsgp@usda.gov. When you email at this email that you're seeing above here, myself, Kathy, and Bob will be able to see that message. So it tends to work better to email vsgp@usda.gov than to email us individually, so we can all have eyes on your questions and to be able to help you throughout your application process. So
Danielle, one clarifying note in the contact information slide, I see vsgp@nifa.usda.gov. Should it be vsgp@usda.gov
Yes.
get through to? Okay, good.
Yes.
Very good.
Yes. Okay. Well, then with that, we thank you all for your time. I am going to stop recording and end the meeting for everyone. We appreciate your attendance and we look forward to your applications.
Thanks for joining us today, everyone.
Thank you.
It was great to meet some of you virtually.